Chapter 51. You are Mrs. Zhang. Sun Chuang listened to Lan Yibai's gentle voice and could not help but say to herself, "Your son won't feel sorry for me at all, and he won't blame you either, because he is the one who came up with the idea." Lan Yibai said a few words of concern, and Sun Chuang shrugged them off, saying she wanted to rest. The moment the door closed, Sun Chuang jumped out from the bed. She swiftly picked up her blanket and raised her little face. Facing Zhang Hong on the bed, she said proudly, "From today onwards, we will be sleeping in separate rooms." Zhang Hong opened his eyes, and his eyes were bright. "We can sleep in separate rooms. You still have to take care of me. You cannot trouble my mother." Sun Chuang rolled her eyes and could not help but mutter, "Why should I take care of you, just because you're a filial son?" In the past, she had thought the mother and son were on the same side, and that she, the daughter-in-law, was an outsider. Now she had a deeper understanding. If she did not have some foundation in martial arts, he would have crushed her thigh just now. Now she did not even need to look. She already knew that her thigh was bruised. If he did not know how to love his wife, why should she feel sorry for his mother? Zhang Hong frowned. Again, he felt like they were on different wavelengths because of the generational gap. However, he said patiently, "In the past it was fine because I was unconscious. Now it definitely isn't right to let her take care of me again." His legs had not recovered yet, so he could not have enough strength to walk. Whether it was going to the bathroom or taking a shower, he indeed needed someone to help him. And Sun Chuang was the most suitable person to do those things. Sun Chuang was a little annoyed. "Stop explaining. Isn't it just that you feel sorry for your mother and that you treat me like a servant? In your dreams, I am the daughter of a wealthy family. But you are now Mrs. Zhang." Zhang Hong's words stopped her from speaking, reminding her not to forget her current identity. Sun Chuang gritted her teeth and said, "Mrs. Zhang is just Mrs. Zhang. What's so grateful about it? Being your wife is like being a servant. Do you think I'm willing to be that? If it were not for the Sen family's village, she would not have married a vegetable." Zhang Hong finished the rest of her sentence in his heart. He suddenly felt angry and wanted to beat her up. This girl did not really join the Zhang family. He knew from the start that Sun Chuang had married him for a reason. However, hearing her say it in person made Zhang Hong feel very uncomfortable. Suddenly, Zhang Hong said, "The Zhang family does not let maids sleep until the sun rises. They also do not give the maids $1,000,000 sport cards. You think you're a servant? What will the other people in the Zhang family think?" Zhang Hong's voice was not loud, but it was enough to make Sun Chuang stunned for a moment. Sun Chuang opened her mouth and hugged the blanket tightly. She gritted her teeth and said, "Am I just supposed to serve you? I will be your personal maid, all right?" Zhang Hong continued, "3 meals a day. As long as I summon you, you have to appear at any time." Sun Chuang replied with a frown, "No, I still have classes during the day. How can I rush back when you summon me?" She could not be easily controlled. Sun Chuang knew how to bargain with others. Zhang Hong retracted his gaze. There was a trace of coldness in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "Boyan will be here during the day. So that meant that she will have to accompany him every night?" It seemed that he really thought of her as a wife who was supposed to sleep with him. Sun Chuang moved closer and asked in a low voice, "Zhang Hong, are you afraid that I won't be here? You're too afraid by yourself? Why don't I find a dog to accompany you?" After saying that, Sun Chuang threw the dog in her arms into Zhang Hong. She hugged the blanket and ran to the door in a flash. When she saw Zhang Hong throw the poor and helpless little puppy on the ground in disgust, Sun Chuang felt that Zhang Hong was really a bad person. He did not know how to love at all. Zhang Hong said calmly, "Don't bring dogs into the room anymore." Sun Chuang's face was filled with pride. "In the future, this won't be my room. If you want it to go out, you would have to get out of bed and kick it out yourself. But don't be so loud because your mother is still downstairs." After saying that, she ignored Zhang Hong's expression, closed the door, and ran into the room. From now on, she did not need to sleep with him anymore, but she felt very disappointed. Zhang Hong frowned as he looked at the little puppy who was spinning on the floor. After a while, he said in a deep voice, "It's time to teach this girl a lesson." The injury on Sen Shuang's back healed just as Boyan had said it would. After a week of resting at home, the pain was gone. Although she could not make any sudden movements, it was fortunate that she could retaliate if any other ordinary person tried to bully her. Sen Shuang sat cross-legged on the bed. She grabbed his arm and pulled it towards her roughly. "Don't move, I can't even stab accurately." After she said that, his hand slanted. As expected, this needle did not pierce accurately, and a bead of blood quickly emerged from her skin. Zhang Hong laid on the bed helplessly. He looked at Sen Shuang, who was not being careful with his body. "Do you know the acupuncture points or not?" "You must be joking. I have been learning martial arts since I was the age of 7, and it's been more than 10 years. I can even find the right acupuncture points with my eyes closed." Sen Shuang thought to herself, "The key point is that you've taken off your clothes. As a young lady, I'm easily distracted by you, so you can't blame me." She was still innocent. Zhang Hong seduced her with his beauty. How could she resist at such a young age? It was just a sneak peek, but it made her fumble with the needle. Zhang Hong looked at the bruises on his body and the bloody holes that she had made with the needles and sighed helplessly. "Please close your eyes for me." Boyan had gotten a set of golden acupuncture needles from God knows where. He let Sen Shuang practice on him every day. He claimed that it was for the recovery of his body, blood vessels, meridians, and muscles, but in fact, Sen Shuang, this girl, had just made many bloody holes every day. Although the wounds were not big, it still hurt since it happened again and again. Sen Shuang's face flashed with embarrassment. She looked at the beads of blood that she had caused and quickly took a tissue to wipe them away. She whispered, "You're a man. What's wrong with being pricked by needles?" Zhang Hong gritted his teeth and said, "Yes, a man. You pricking me with a needle isn't that big of a deal, but do you think it's okay to do it and being pricked by more than 10 needles a day?" Zhang Hong's expression was that of a profiter, and it made Sen Shuang want to cover her face with a pillow. The more beautiful a face was, the more vicious it was. Sen Shuang said guiltily, "All right, I'll just close my eyes and prick you. My previous master was an expert at acupoints. It's just that this is my first time using needles. I'm not familiar with it. Of course I'll make a mistake." By the time she became familiar with it, his skin had been riddled with holes. Zhang Hong could not be bothered with her. He watched as Sen Shuang took out a tie and blindfolded herself. He felt nervous suddenly. He looked at the slender needle in Sen Shuang's hand as he began to frown. Zhang Hong said nervously, "Wrong. Go up a little. No, it's on the left. Can you do it or not? If you can't, get lost." Sen Shuang shouted, "Stop it. I'm dizzy from all that noise. How can a man be so naggy? Be quiet." Zhang Hong's face darkened as he looked at Sen Shuang, who was groping around. He followed her hand with his eyes and said in shock, "Stop. Don't." Before he could finish his sentence, Sen Shuang's hand descended. Sen Hong quickly moved to the side and the needle pierced his thigh. Blood gushed out from the gap between the needles. There was a piercing pain, but Zhang Hong let out a sigh of relief. If Sen Shuang's needles had landed there, his sex life would have been ruined. Zhang Hong stretched out his hand and tore off the tie on Sen Shuang's face. He had no choice but to compromise. "I will tell Boyan that there is no need to use needles anymore." Sen Shuang replied, "How can you? Dr. Boyan said that you will recover quickly this way, and your legs will get better too." Zhang Hong was afraid that the strength in his legs would not come back and that his entire lower body would be paralyzed. "There is no need. I would rather it take its time." He did not want to be pricked by another needle. Sen Shuang pouted and said angrily, "Zhang Hong, do you think I can't do it?" Zhang Hong rubbed his forehead and covered his legs with a blanket. He said in a deep voice, "I believe in what you can do, but I don't believe in your medical skills." To put it in bluntly, He did not believe in her. Sun Chuang glared at him angrily, then threw the pillow beside the bed at him in frustration. Who knew that although Zhang Hong's legs were weak and that he couldn't walk, his arms were very flexible. He blocked it immediately and the pillow fell to the ground. He grabbed her wrist and pulled hard. Sun Chuang's body was unsteady and she fell into Zhang Hong's arm. She could feel his heartbeat. Sun Chuang was stunned, and just as she was about to get up, the big hand on her waist pulled her into his arms. The two of them hugged each other tightly and laid on the bed. They did not realize that the door had opened at this time. Zhang Hong was holding Sun Chuang tightly in his arms. She said, "You're bullying me." Zhang Hong still hugged her tightly. "You're a martial arts master who has cultivated for more than 10 years. No one can bully you, right?" Sun Chuang said, "Zhang Hong, let me go." "I won't let go," Zhang Hong thought to himself. If he let go now, wouldn't he get beaten up? Sun Chuang was nestled into the man's arms. In the past, Zhang Hong would not move and would just allow her to do whatever she wanted. However, the man in front of her suddenly became so domineering, causing her to feel some fear. "If you don't let go, I'll get angry." If she acted carelessly and broke his leg, she better not be accused of trying to murder her husband. Although he knew that Sun Chuang's words were not a threat to him, Zhang Hong still let go. Sun Chuang rolled off his body and sat up on the bed. When she raised her head and saw Lan Yibai at the door, she was stunned. Sun Chuang's hair was messy and was wearing a set of conservative pajamas. She looked at Lan Yibai, who had been standing at the doorframe holding a dog. Then she subconsciously looked at Zhang Hong. Sure enough, this person was already playing dead. Chapter 53. Her son was cheated on. Sun Chuang raised her head and asked, "Mom, why are you here?" Lan Yibai's gaze swept across the room. When she saw the glass door leading to the balcony open, she could not help but frown. "Sun Chuang, who were you just talking to just now?" Lan Yibai suddenly had a bad premonition. She looked at Zhang Hong, who was still lying in bed. Could it be that Sun Chuang had feelings for someone else? Her son was still in the room. Lan Yibai felt very uncomfortable, thinking about Sun Chuang flirting with someone else. Although she did not have any evidence, she had heard a man's voice just now. Sun Chuang had just cheated on her son. Sun Chuang said nervously, "I was talking to myself. I'm supposed to provoke Zhang Hong, aren't I? William taught me how to use golden needles to pierce his acupuncture points. I'm using those needles on him now." Lan Yibai looked at the open bag of long and thin golden needles on the bed. She looked at her son, then suddenly walked forward and pulled the blanket off Zhang Hong. The bruise on Zhang Hong's body that Sun Chuang had left was almost healed. However, there were still wounds from her acupuncture attempts. There were new injuries and old scars. His legs looked molted and pitiful. Lan Yibai was stunned. She looked at Sun Chuang and said in disbelief, "You're abusing Zhang Hong." Sun Chuang was shocked by Lan Yibai's words. She quickly reacted and waved her hand. "Mom, I'm not. You've misunderstood. I'm really doing acupuncture on him." Lan Yibai was seeing red, and her face was twitching from the fury she tried to suppress. "I've misunderstood? Could it be that Zhang Hong's injuries were also a misunderstanding? What did he do to make you treat him like this? You've done such vicious things. Will you only be satisfied when he's dead?" Lan Yibai's words were harsh. Sun Chuang was so shocked that she could not speak. "I didn't. I really gave him acupuncture. You could ask Dr. Boyan." Lan Yibai looked at the glass door leading to the balcony. "Of course, I will ask Boyan. From today onwards, don't leave this room." Was this house arrest or torture? Sun Chuang was so anxious that she wanted to cry. Lan Yibai did not listen to her explanation at all. She seemed all very cold. "I don't care if you have feelings for someone else. Since you're already married to Zhang Hong, he is your husband. Taking care of him is what you should do. Don't forget that. The Zhang family can help your sister and give you protection. But we can also give you nothing. Today onwards, you should move back to this room and take care of Zhang Hong. If anything happens to him, I won't let you get away with it. This is the lady of the house. She was raised by the Zhang family, and she was her mother-in-law. Sun Shuang watched Lan Yubai walk out of the room. A chill ran down her spine. What had she done? She had actually made Lan Yubai so angry. She sat on the bed in a daze. Gradually, tears welled up in her eyes, and her eyes soon turned red. Zhang Hong opened his eyes and saw Sun Shuang sitting on the bed with a hurt expression. Her eyes were red and tears were about to stream down her face. She refused to let them fall. It was heartbreaking to look at her like this. Zhang Hong frowned uncomfortably and held her hand awkwardly. Mom didn't mean to hurt you. Are you angry? It was the first time he opened his mouth to coax a woman. His words were gruff, but he still carefully observed Sun Shuang's expression. Sun Shuang blinked and turned to look at Zhang Hong. Without saying anything, she stared at him with reddened eyes. Zhang Hong felt goosebumps from the intensity of her stare. He comforted her. Don't take Mom's words to heart. She didn't mean anything by it. Your mom said I have feelings for someone else. Why does she think that? She must have thought I've been cheating on you. Now she wants me to get out of the Zhang family. Sun Shuang's tears fell after she finished speaking. Zhang Hong did not react for a long moment after hearing her words. Then he said in a deep voice, You are Mrs. Zhang now. Mom is only reminding you of that. Sun Shuang stared at Zhang Hong through bloodshot eyes and said, You are angry at me. Sun Shuang had just been so hurt. She felt that she had no way to channel her anger. She looked at Zhang Hong. She immediately felt that he was not pleasing to the eye. Your family is too evil. You know that I can't divorce you. You know that I have nowhere to go. And you know that I'm very pitiful now. I won't even have enough money for food if I leave the Zhang family. Therefore, you can bully me. When Sun Shuang saw that Zhang Hong's expression had softened, she cried even harder. His mother had bullied her until she felt so scared. Zhang Hong felt a little dizzy from watching her cry. He patiently coaxed her. No one in the Zhang family dares to bully you. This is probably because they had been arguing just now, and Lan Yubai had misunderstood. As long as he woke up, the misunderstanding would naturally be resolved. However, Sun Shuang did not care about that. Lan Yubai's reaction caused by a misunderstanding had made her suffer. Now she wanted to exact her revenge on Zhang Hong. Sun Shuang covered her mouth and sobbed. No one in the Zhang family dares to bully me. Your mother just bullied me. Zhang Hong comforted her in a low voice. What do you want? Sun Shuang said aggrievedly, Your mother won't let me go out now. It's all your fault. Chapter 54. Was he indifferent? Zhang Hong sighed. She was just saying those words in a moment of anger. In 2 days, she won't make things difficult for you anymore. Zhang Hong understood his mother. It was just that when she was angry, she spoke without thinking. When she thought things through, she would treat Sun Shuang well again. Sun Shuang bit her lip and looked at him, still crying. She said, You're just siding with your mother and not helping me. After she said that, she laid on the bed and cried. Her voice made his heart ache. Zhang Hong could not take it anymore. This is the first time a woman had cried like this by his ear. All right, I didn't side with you. It's just that it's not convenient for me to wake up now. You should just lay low at home for the next few days. Zhang Hong suddenly remembered that Sun Shuang had someone she had said she had liked. He could not remember what that man's name was. It seemed like he had done business with the Zhang family. Did his mother invite a potential predator into the house? Sun Shuang turned and said softly, What if your mother wants to deduct my allowance? So this is what you were worried about. Zhang Hong frowned and said helplessly, I'll give you the money. Sun Shuang blinked. Although she had already stopped crying, her tears were still hanging on her eyelashes. She looked pitiful. Your mother will give me $1 million a month. Can you meet that? Zhang Hong sighed. William will call you tomorrow. Indeed, women needed to be coaxed with money. Zhang Hong had the wrong idea of Sun Shuang. Hearing this, the woman burst into laughter. Even her tears stopped. She got up from the bed and wiped her face. All right, I forgive you. Sun Shuang did not go to the university. Naturally, Mu Sen Sen would send her a message every day. You're not coming to school because you're sick. There's no other reason, right? Sun Shuang replied, it's true, there's no other reason. Mu Sen replied, so it's not, for example, Zhang Hong who's making it hard for you to leave the bed, right? Sun Shuang could not stop her lips from twitching. She ignored her, throwing her phone aside and turning around to get to the bathroom. She was still an innocent girl. After Zhang Hong was done with his work, he turned off the computer. He noticed the phone on the bed that kept on beeping, so he picked it up. Mu Sen said, you're so beautiful and you're lying next to him. How can Zhang Hong remain indifferent? Could he be an Enoch? Zhang Hong frowned as he looked at the contents of the girl's conversation. What did that mean? Was he indifferent? Was he an Enoch? Sun Shuang came out of the bathroom and saw Zhang Hong sitting on the bed with a gloomy face. His eyes met hers and his gaze was thought-provoking. He was even holding her phone in his hand. Sun Shuang quickly snatched up the phone from him. Before she could unlock it, she heard Zhang Hong's voice, and she could not help but shiver. Other than thinking about your monthly living expenses, you should clear your head. She did not want to think about such nonsense at such a young age. Sun Shuang took the phone, turned around, and replied to Mu Sen. Zhang Hong saw your message. Suddenly, Mu Sen sent a voicemail. Her voice was filled with excitement. Zhang Hong, did you see it? Did he behave like President Ba in the novel? Was he aroused? And did he want to show off his masculine charm? Fortunately, Sun Shuang was smart enough to wear earphones to listen to her message. Otherwise, if Zhang Hong knew what Mu Sen had said, she did not know if he would laugh. She quickly replied, no, he thinks that you should clear your mind. After Sun Shuang sent the message, she pretended to be nonchalant and took the CEO's bride from under her pillow, ready to see the ending. Zhang Hong lowered his head and saw the name of the book cover. He immediately frowned, and a look of disgust flashed across his face. This was the novel that had poisoned him for 2 months. Sun Shuang must have picked up her current fantasies because of this book. However, there were several hundred pages in this book. Why did she not reach the ending after reading it for so long? A light cough came from beside her. Sun Shuang did not move and continued to stare at the book in front of her. She was completely immersed in the book and focused on it. Sun Shuang saw that she had not responded and said, Sun Shuang, stop reading. Sun Shuang waved her hand in disgust. Why? I haven't got to the ending. Don't be noisy. Zhang Hong snatched the book she was holding and threw it onto the bed. Without waiting Sun Shuang to be angry, he said, help me go to the bathroom. Sun Shuang said impatiently, what do you want? Zhang Hong coughed lightly. I want to pee. Oh, if you want to go to the bathroom, then go to the bathroom. She had been taking care of him for so long, and she had already seen every part of his body. Sun Shuang was not embarrassed about it at all. What was there to be embarrassed about? She had immediately rebuked Zhang Hong. He looked embarrassed. He was a 30-year-old man, and he had really been rebuked by a 20-year-old girl. Sun Shuang did not mind, but when Zhang Hong entered the bathroom, his face was red, and he leaned against the wall. Chapter 55. Follow me back to the Sun residence. Sun Shuang pricked up her ears to listen for any sounds coming from inside. She heard a thump in the bathroom. Zhang Hong seemed to have fallen. Sun Shuang rushed into the bathroom and looked at the disheveled yet seductive Zhang Hong in front of her. Her face immediately turned red. How can you be so stupid? Although she wore a look of disgust, Sun Shuang stood at the door and did not walk away. She slowly moved over and picked up a towel to cover his waist. Sun Shuang clutched his forehead helplessly. He only wanted to take a bath, but he did not expect to slip and fall to the ground. He felt embarrassed. Even though he was a 30-year-old man, this little girl actually did not turn around and run away. When Sun Shuang saw that Zhang Hong did not respond to her, she could not help but look at him as if he was a fool. Are you okay? Zhang Hong was both angry and annoyed. Do I look all right to you? Help me up. Sun Shuang blushed and rushed over to hold his arm. She squeezed her eyes shut. I didn't see anything. Zhang Hong laughed in anger. Open your eyes. If she did not look where she was walking, she would pull the both of them down. Zhang Hong's legs were very weak. He leaned most of his weight on Sun Shuang's body. Fortunately, although she looked thin and weak, she had the body of steel and iron bones. Although she moved slowly due to his weight, she still managed to help Zhang Hong to the side of the bathtub. Zhang Hong looked uncomfortable. She also saw that his forehead was covered with a layer of sweat. Sun Shuang also realized that he was keeping one of his arms raised. He seemed to have been injured. Zhang Hong endured it and said, "It's fine. Call for Boyan tomorrow." Calling him now at such a late hour was not ideal. Not to mention that it would alert Lanya Bai if Boyan came over. It would not be possible to hide the fact that he was now conscious. Sun Shuang tugged at his arm. "Let me take a look." Zhang Hong grunted. Only then did she realize that she had been too forceful. She quickly released his hand and touched it carefully. It seemed to have been dislocated. Sun Shuang pursed her lips and said, "Bear with it. I'll straighten out for you." Before Zhang Hong could say no need, Sun Shuang had already popped the bone back into place. Zhang Hong broke out in a cold sweat. She was too strong. He quickly raised his arm and said, "It's done. You've done well." Sun Shuang, who was praised, wore a gratified smile. "If you ever break an arm or a leg in the future, just look for me. I'm not just good at breaking bones, I'm good at fixing them too." Zhang Hong said, "Then I'll thank you in advance." Sun Shuang came out of the bathroom and did not forget to remind him to be careful. "Be careful when you're trying to walk. If you can't stand up, call for me. I'll be at the door. Don't worry about cleaning up." Zhang Hong replied helplessly, "I got it." Sun Shuang held up a furry little fellow. "Du Bao, what do you think of Zhang's family? They have good food and drinks here in the Zhang family's house. Mother-in-law even gave me a luxury car. I should take care of Zhang Hong, right?" On that rainy day under the full moon, she had picked up 2 puppies. On the first day, they were shivering from cold. One of them was even sick. Sun Shuang called them Du Bao and Bazi. Because of Zhang Hong's accent, Lanya Bai was particularly sensitive toward life. Lanya Bai loved the 2 little guys that Sun Shuang had brought back. Sun Shuang looked at Du Bao and made a kissing expression at it. "I'm returning the favor to the Zhang family now. Treating Zhang Hong well is the right thing to do. When the Sun family's villa is bought back, I'll bring you guys home with me, okay? Don't be ungrateful. I'm the one who brought you guys back. You can't betray me just because you ate dog food under the Zhang family's roof for a few days. You should know that I'm the one who brought you guys back. You have to come back to the Sun residence with me." Sun Shuang was fierce towards the dog. She looked at the pitiful puppy with a pair of innocent eyes and glared. The bathroom door opened. Sun Shuang put down the little guy and got off the bed. And she saw Zhang Hong, who only had a towel wrapped around his waist, at the door. Her face was red. She whispered, "You're done showering." Zhang Hong half leaned against the door frame. Because he had spent too much energy in the shower, he sighed in exhaustion and waved at Sun Shuang. "Come here." If it was someone else who waved at her like that, he would have definitely break his hands. However, Sun Shuang immediately ran over to the weak Zhang Hong. She steadied him and carefully brought him to the bedside. Sun Shuang reminded him softly, "Be careful, let's walk slowly." She was small and strong. Zhang Hong was a head taller than her, yet she was able to stand. There was a knock at the door and the door opened. Sun Shuang was shocked by the sudden sound, and she slipped, hugging Zhang Hong and throwing him onto the bed. The 2 of them rolled onto the bed together. Zhang Hong instantly closed his eyes and played the role of a vegetable perfectly. Sun Shuang was stunned. When he closed his eyes, it was as if nothing had happened. How was she going to explain this? Sun Shuang was squished under Zhang Hong's weight. She felt like she was suffocating. Chapter 56. The Third Lady of the Zhang Family. However, this man would play dead at the moment he heard any movement. He would let her do all the work. After struggling for a long time, she finally pushed Zhang Hong's body off of her. Shen Shuang tidied up her clothes in a sorry state and pulled up the blanket to cover Zhang Hong. After making sure that the two of them weren't naked, she turned to the person who had just come into the room. Zhang Xinyan saw Shen Shuang's pretty face and immediately frowned. "You're the new maid?" Such a beautiful woman had appeared in the Zhang family's residence. She was even hugging the sick Zhang Hong. Surely there was a story here. Shen Shuang quickly waved her hand and explained, "No, I'm not." Then she retorted, "Who are you?" Zhang Xinyan stared at Shen Shuang. "I'm the third lady of the Zhang family." "Who are you? Why are you in my brother's room? What are you going to do with him? Did you just try to seduce him although he's sick? You dare behave this way with a vegetable too? There's no way you can be the young mistress of our Zhang family." Shen Shuang looked at Zhang Hong, who was lying in bed with a confused expression. She was initially a little angry at this woman who had suddenly barged in. However, when she knew that Zhang Hong's sister, the beloved daughter of the Zhang family, and her legendary sister-in-law, she did not act rashly. After all, she had just offended her mother-in-law today. Lan Yabai suspected that she had cheated on Zhang Hong. Now her sister-in-law had come to accuse her. Could it be that she was going to stage a big drama involving family ethics in the Zhang family today? Her lips curled up. An enchanting smile appeared on Shen Shuang's face. She raised her eyebrows and said, "I was trying to seduce your brother. I wanted to be the young mistress of the Zhang family. What can you do for me?" Zhang Xinyan said angrily, "You're shameless. I'm going to chase you out." Shen Shuang pouted. "Then you won't be able to do that." She was now the young mistress of the Zhang family, and now that Zhang Hong had woken up, if nothing went wrong, the entire Zhang family would belong to Zhang Hong. Then, as Zhang Hong's wife, wouldn't the Zhang family belong to her in the future? As the future mistress of the family, wouldn't she be able to say whatever she wanted at home? Thinking about it, Shen Shuang felt a sudden sense of excitement. The Zhang family was big and powerful. She could sit on tens of billions of assets and be one of the top wealthy families in Lin City. She could be the apex predator at the top of the food chain. Zhang Xinyan could not tell what Shen Shuang was thinking. She only felt that her proud look made it look like she was the mistress and she was the maid. Zhang Xinyan's expression became cold. She felt insulted. "Who told you to enter my brother's room? Get out." Zhang Xinyan grabbed Shen Shuang's arm and pulled her out. Shen Shuang staggered. When she saw Lan Yabai rushing over, she quickly stood by the side and greeted obediently, "Mother." Lan Yabai initially felt a knot in her heart when she heard the man's voice from outside the room. She had been trying to guess who the man was all day. After all, she checked to see if Zhang Tinghao had come to the old residence. However, he had gone to a branch office a distance away. There were only a few male servants in the house. They were all old and could not fit Shen Shuang's standards at all. Lan Yabai could not figure it out at all. She had no idea who Shen Shuang was cheating with. Therefore, she looked at Shen Shuang with a complicated expression. Zhang Xinyan still had yet to recover from hearing what Shen Shuang had just called Lan Yabai. "Mother?" Lan Yabai said coldly, "This is Shen Shuang. She's your sister-in-law." Zhang Xinyan was stunned. A girl who looked younger than her was her sister-in-law? The young woman who had just turned 25 could not accept it. "Mom, are you crazy? How can you choose such a young girl for my brother? Does that old-fashioned brother of mine like young girls?" Even if her brother was lying in bed right now and could not participate in discussions about his marriage, his mother should understand him. A young lady like Shen Shuang was not suitable for her brother at all. Her sister-in-law should be a dignified lady from a wealthy family. At the very least, she should be an elite businesswoman. Lan Yabai frowned. "How old are you? Is this how you should behave when meeting your sister-in-law for the first time?" However, how could she address her as sister-in-law when she was so young? Zhang Xinyan's heart was beating unsteadily. Its unsteady pace made her want to go crazy. Shen Shuang did not mind. Just as she was about to come up with an excuse, she heard a muffled sound coming from the room. She quivered, and without waiting for Lan Yibai and Zhang Xinyan to speak, she turned around and closed the door. Zhang Xinyan said angrily, "You see, she's too rude." Lan Yibai was also puzzled. Sun Shuang had never acted like this before. Could it be that she was really angry with Zhang Xinyan? She frowned and said, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back? It's already so late. Go back to your room first." Zhang Xinyan felt uncomfortable. "Mom, why are you only talking to me like that and not that girl?" Lan Yibai glanced at her. "That's your sister-in-law. If you were my daughter-in-law and married a husband like your brother, I wouldn't be so hard on you either." Zhang Xinyan suddenly lost her temper. She followed behind Lan Yibai and muttered, "My brother was really unlucky to marry such a beautiful woman like her. Why don't you consider his feelings?" Chapter 57. Not afraid of other men stealing her, afraid of other men thinking about her. When Lan Yibai heard this and thought of the man's voice coming from Sun Shuang's room, all her warmth disappeared. She could only give her the benefit of the doubt. In the room, Sun Shuang quickly locked the door and returned to the bedroom. She saw Zhang Hong sitting on the bed, waiting for her to come back. "Are you okay? Didn't he fall just now? Why was he so loud?" Zhang Hong did not answer her question. "Zhang Xinyan is back. Although she was his sister, he did not look like he missed her." Sun Shuang walked to the wardrobe and grabbed a change of clothes. "She's back. The two of us almost fought. Didn't you hear us just now?" When she saw Zhang Xinyan were arguing, Zhang Hong was just lying in bed. She could not believe that he did not hear it. Zhang Hong had heard it clearly. He said calmly, "She can't beat you." Sun Shuang looked at him. "Aren't you afraid that your sister will be at a disadvantage?" Zhang Hong raised his head and looked at her. She had an easy life growing up in the Zhang family. She should be at a disadvantage. It's better than you being at a disadvantage. Zhang Hong's voice was not loud, but it touched Sun Shuang's heart. It was like a little pebble thrown into a still lake, causing ripples. Sun Shuang secretly sized them up. "You don't want me to suffer?" She thought that Zhang Hong would side with his sister. After all, she was his sister. Sun Shuang was just a companion that Lan Yibai had arranged to marry him so that he would not be lonely. On the third day after Zhang Xinyan returned, Lan Yibai held a return party for her at the Zhang family's courtyard. Although it was held by Lan Yibai, it was clear that Zhang Xinyan's position in the old man's heart was immeasurable. Sun Shuang took Zhang Hong's living expenses and bought a bunch of luxury items without hesitation. After all, she was also the #1 Cilicia and Zhang Hong's secret wife. She could not dress shabbily. Sun Shuang was dressed in a blue strapless evening gown. Her body glided towards the front of the bed. Her hair was done up casually, revealing her long and beautiful neck. She smiled sweetly at Zhang Hong. The glint in her eyes was enchanting and affectionate. "Does it look good?" Zhang Hong furrowed his brows. His fingertips were on the keyboards in front of him, only typed a string of spaces. His thin lips pursed into a straight line. Under Sun Shuang's expectant gaze, he said sternly, "It's not good. It's too frivolous." Sun Shuang could not help but roll her eyes. "What's wrong with you?" She had carefully picked out this dress, and her makeup was meticulously applied. Even though she was a woman, she was taken with the girl she saw in the mirror. Yet Zhang Hong could not say anything. Zhang Hong said seriously, "Change into another dress and let your hair down." His gaze was fixed on the computer in front of him, but he did not continue reading. Sun Shuang complained softly. "Which one? I've been here in your mouth." Sun Shuang complained softly. "Which one?" "I've been here in your house for months, and I'm bored to death. A party like this is rare. I bet that your sister is wearing something even more frivolous than me. Why don't you scold her?" The man on the bed spoke without batting an eyelid. "If you don't want to participate, I can get Boyan to inform Mom." Sun Shuang glared angrily at Zhang Hong and took another dress into the bathroom. Can't you change? Zhang Heng looked at her back, and his eyes darkened at her flirtatious figure. After a while, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Very soon, Sun Chuang changed into a light yellow chiffon dress. The dress revealed her calves, exposing her fair and supple calves and feet. Although her arms were hidden behind a layer of lace, she was wearing a tube top. This half-exposed lock made her even look sexier than the previous outfit. Zhang Heng frowned. Change again, that won't do. He was not afraid of other men stealing her. He was afraid of other men even thinking about her. Sun Chuang angrily threw her phone, and it landed on Zhang Heng's arm. Whether you like it or not, I'm wearing this. I won't change. Come down and stop me if you can. Sun Chuang said that deliberately, knowing that the muscles in his legs were still too weak. She took the opportunity to grab her handbag from the table and ran out of the room. Zhang Heng was so angry that his expression darkened. Come back. He could only watch as the pale yellow figure disappeared from the room. The main courtyard of the Zhang family's old residence was brightly lit. Old Master Zhang took the opportunity of Zhang Xinyan's return to hold a reception party that meant something more. Sun Chuang stayed by Lan Yibai's side and instantly got everyone's attention. However, when they heard that Lan Yibai introduced her, everyone's curiosity turned into shock. When they looked at Sun Chuang again, their gazes became intrigued. The former number one solicitor in Lin City, the second daughter of the Sen family, actually did not go down after the Sen family went bankrupt. Instead, she turned around and married into the richest family in Lin City, the Zhang family. She became the young mistress of the Zhang family. If this news was from half a year ago, it would definitely make everyone envious of Sun Chuang. However, when they heard the news now, everyone wore mocking smiles. Half a year ago, Zhang Heng was seriously injured in a car accident. Chapter 58. Someone is following you. Even though it took him a month to become stable, Zhang Heng had become a vegetable. The power of the Zhang family had returned to the hands of the old master. However, the old master was getting old. He could not control the business empire that Zhang Heng had created, so he could only give up his power. The Zhang family's second son had become the only pillar of support for the old man. Everyone knew that the Zhang family's second son, Zhang Yelian, was merely the old master's illegitimate child, and was already fortunate enough that the illegitimate child could be allowed back into the Zhang family. But now the entire Zhang family wanted to throw away the olive branch just like that. While people sighed about the situation, they still did not forget to flatter Zhang Yelian and his son. And Sun Chuang marrying Zhang Heng had become the biggest joke in the entire Sin City. The former number one solicitor had actually fallen to the point of marrying a vegetable to protect herself. Sun Chuang was not afraid of those people's mocking gaze. She fondled Lan Yibai. She shrugged through the crowd until someone bumped into her. Red wine from a glass spilled onto her body. Sun Chuang frowned as she looked at her stained dress. If these people were to make things difficult for her now, she would make them pay when Zhang Heng took over the Zhang family's business again. Although Lan Yibai was a little resentful of her because of the incident that day, she was still the gentle wife of a wealthy family in front of everyone else. Go upstairs and change. Don't catch a cold. Sun Chuang let go of her hand and walked towards the east courtyard. There was a figure in the crowd that quickly followed her. Sun Chuang walked along the small path towards the east court. There was a little greenhouse between the two buildings. Sun Chuang liked to read here. Lan Yibai had arranged to put a crystal bookshelf for her. At this time, the lights of the greenhouse were all on. For Zhang Xinyan's banquet, the Zhang family had decorated the entire courtyard. Although this place was beautifully built, it was far from the old residence. No one was willing to come this way. Sun Chuang did not take 2 steps before a hand grabbed her shoulder. She subconsciously grabbed the person's wrist and turned around to swing her fist at them. Yan Jinyan's deep voice rang out. It's me, Sun Chuang. Sun Shuang reacted and eased up. However, Yang Jinyan grabbed her wrist and quickly brought her into the greenhouse. She subconsciously shook off him. She heard him say helplessly in a low voice, "Don't make a sound. Someone is following you. They're not from the Zhang family." Sun Shuang raised her head and saw Xiao Nan running out amongst the flower. Xiao Nan stood outside the greenhouse and looked at the brightly lit house in the east courtyard not far away. He seemed to be hesitating. "Where is she? I clearly saw her walking this way." He was not familiar with the Zhang family's residence. He was afraid of running around would cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Most importantly, he could not afford to offend the Zhang family. Just as he was hesitating, a rustling sound came from behind him. When Zhang Tinghao saw Xiao Nan, he was also surprised. "Why are you here, young Master Xiao?" Xiao Nan felt guilty. In addition, Zhang Tinghao's position in the Zhang family was becoming more and more important, so the Xiao family fawned over him. Naturally, he was quick to treat him well. "I saw that the flowers here were beautiful, so I came over to take a look. I didn't expect the Zhang family to build it so well. I walked all the way here and was so taken with it that I didn't want to leave." A meaningful smile appeared on Zhang Tinghao's face. He glanced at the balcony not far away and said somewhat absent-mindedly, "Indeed, the flowers here are most beautiful." Sun Shuang, who was in the greenhouse, could not help but frown. The look that Zhang Tinghao gave her just now made her feel disgusted. The two of them were flattering themselves. After a long moment, they left the greenhouse. Sun Shuang kept watching for a while. The moment the two of them left, Sun Shuang pushed Yang Jinyan aside and hurriedly left the greenhouse. Yang Jinyan followed her. "You've been avoiding me these past few days. You even asked your assistant to deliver the designs he made. Why are you doing this?" Sun Shuang turned her back. She did not want to see Yang Jinyan's expression. She only felt that he was creating ripples in her otherwise calm heart. Sun Shuang replied, "What we have is only a professional relationship." Yang Jinyan said in a deep voice, "Don't you feel guilty for deliberately avoiding me? If it's really just about work, why didn't you tell me about your designs personally? There's more between us besides work, isn't there?" Before Sun Shuang denied it, Yang Jinyan continued, "Other than work, we still have our history. We went to the same primary school, and we were apprenticed to a martial arts master together. I even taught you about acupuncture points on the human body. You said that we were just a professional relationship. Shuang, you're being too harsh." The more she denied these things, the deeper the relationship was. Yang Jinyan even wanted to ask about what would have happened between them if she came to him sooner. In the past, he had treated her like his younger sister, but later on, he could not tell what Sun Shuang was to him. He only knew that Sun Shuang was still too young, so young that he didn't know how to make Sun Shuang accept his feelings. Chapter 59. We are just friends. Yang Jinyan thought that once Sun Shuang grew up, everything would go according to plan. However, he had forgotten there was another saying, "Life is unpredictable." No one knew what would happen next. Sun Shuang bit her lip. Her face was glowing under the warm light. The light caused her facial features to glisten brightly. Her hands that were by her sides were gripping her skirt forcefully. Yang Jinyan went forward and grabbed onto her wrist, blocking her path. His gaze fell on Sun Shuang's face. His gaze was burning with determination. The Sun Shuang that I know clearly understands love and hate. She would never deliberately hide the relationship we had. In the past until now, have you ever felt that you couldn't tell me something? Even if we were just friends, you don't have to hide from me. You will only make me misunderstand. You treat me... Sun Shuang nodded. "All right, I won't hide from you. But let's make it clear. I'm already married. We can only be friends." Yang Jinyan chuckled. "All right. As long as you don't hide from me, we can still be friends." Yang Jinyan gazed at Sun Shuang. As he looked at her bright face illuminated by light, he understood that Sun Shuang had a straightforward personality. Sun Shuang, who seemed aloof and unapproachable, was actually a kind and attentive lady, since she did not want to leave the Zhang family now. He would just assume that she wanted to leave if she could. She was only being responsible for Zhang Hong. He felt more relieved than distressed. Sun Shuang said firmly, "Yang Jinyan, we are just friends." The determination in Sun Shuang's eyes made Jin Yan hesitate a little. Realizing how determined she was, he finally said, "Okay. It's good to be friends as long as you don't avoid me, as long as you don't ignore me." Past the rose garden, there was a 2-meter arch bridge. Sun Shuang bent down and tidied up her stained dress. She did not pay attention to where she placed her feet and missed a step. She fell into a small stream under the arch bridge. Sun Shuang reacted quickly. She turned around and stood steadily by the side of the road. Looking at the loose blue stone slab, she could not help but frown. It looked like the Zhang family had to redecorate. A pair of eyes in the bushes stared at the pale yellow figure entering the east garden villa. Finally, they saw the balcony on the second floor. Sun Shuang thought to herself that she really was unlucky today. It was one thing for her dress to be dirty, but she even sprained her ankle by the bridge. Now when she walked, she felt a pain shooting up her ankle. She took some ice cubes from downstairs and supported herself by the railing of the stairs on her way up. Because of the banquet, everyone in the eastern courtyard had gone to the main residence. Sun Shuang found it hard to walk, but at least she had made it to the room door. The lights in the room were not turned on. Before Sun Shuang could speak, a dark figure emerged from the shadows behind her. The person covered her mouth and nose. She smelled something off. Sun Shuang diligently held her breath. She clasped the arms of the person behind her with both hands, bent down, and threw the person up with the shoulder throw. The dark figure fell on the ground and let a muffled cry of pain. Sun Shuang relied on muscle memory to find the light switch by the door. The entire room was illuminated, and she could now see the figure on the ground clearly. Sun Shuang growled, "It's you again!" When she saw Zhang Tinghao on the ground, Sun Shuang wished she had stabbed him with a knife. Zhang Tinghao fell onto the ground and felt his internal organs had been shattered. The handkerchief he had been holding also fell into the ground. He stood up after a long while. When he looked at Sun Shuang, he saw a hint of fear in her eyes. Very quickly, he mustered up his courage and looked at Sun Shuang's swaying body. He smiled. Zhang Hong smiled maliciously and said, "Your skills are getting better and better. I really went through a lot of trouble to keep you from fighting." When Sun Shuang felt that something was wrong, she only stopped breathing. However, before that, she had still inhaled a lot of the fragrance. At first she was fine, but now she felt that her limbs were becoming weak. Sun Shuang moved carefully. "How did you get in? Aren't you afraid that mother and grandfather will find out?" Zhang Tinghao immediately leaned against the door vigilantly and locked it. Seeing that he had succeeded, he smiled. "It doesn't matter if Aunt finds out. I'll say that you seduced me. As for grandfather, I'm the only grandson in the Zhang family. Even if he is angry, will he be able to cut off his own grandson?" Zhang Tinghao's fearlessness and insidiousness made Sun Shuang angry. However, she knew that it was almost impossible to escape the situation. Zhang Tinghao had tried to attack her several times but failed. It was obvious that he was becoming more ruthless this time. She only inhaled a little and her body began to feel weak. Her escape route was clearly blocked. Sun Shuang could only lean into the room. However, with Zhang Hong's condition, how could he beat this bastard Zhang Tinghao? Zhang Tinghao looked at Sun Shuang with bright eyes. "Sister-in-law, don't worry. If you're obedient, I won't mistreat you. But if you insist on not listening to my advice, don't blame me for not taking pity of you." He had thought about this woman for too long, and he wanted her. No other woman had ever made him expend this much effort. Chapter 60. Zhang Hong woke up. However, Sun Shuang had this kind of magical influence on him. Even though he had failed a few times before, he had never stopped thinking about her. If he could not get his hands on this woman, he would not feel at ease even after death. Sen Shuang entered the bedroom and laid on by the bed. Don't come any closer. If Grandpa can't be here to part with you, Zhang Hong will not let you get away with this. She pulled the blanket off the man on the bed weakly, hoping that he would quickly open his eyes and stop pretending to be asleep. When Zhang Tinghao saw Zhang Hong, a hint of hesitation flashed across his eyes. Then he laughed mockingly. Why would I be afraid of him? He's lucky that the car accident didn't kill him. Today, I'm going to personally make him a cuckold and let him hear that his woman in my arms, while he only lays in bed. Zhang Tinghao's arrogant manner made Sen Shuang feel disgusted. If she did not have to think about Zhang Hong and behave cordially, she would have already chopped him into 8 pieces by herself. To think that such an arrogant person could still live into his 30s. Sen Shuang glanced at Zhang Hong. She could not help but reach under the blanket and pinch his leg. However, his entire body was weak now, so this attack was not quite a threat. Sen Shuang said angrily, Zhang Hong, wake up quickly. Zhang Tinghao said arrogantly, it's useless to call him. This kind of cripple is useless. However, if you shout louder, you might even be able to wake him up. Today I will sleep in Zhang Hong's bed and sleep with his woman in front of him. Staying with a piece of trash like me will get you more pleasure than getting with him. Why are you saving your body for this kind of person? Zhang Tinghao had learned his lesson from the previous few times. He tore off the tie on his neck and bound Sen Shuang's hands and feet. When he made sure that she could not resist, he pulled Sen Shuang away from him. The smile on his face became more and more ferocious. Sen Shuang, I like you. You're strong and beautiful. I can't forget your lovely scent. If you had listened to me earlier, I couldn't bear to treat you like this. Zhang Tinghao grabbed Sen Shuang's ankle and dragged her towards him. He quickly tore Sen Shuang's dress. The corner of his mouth cracked into a smile. His big hand grabbed Sen Shuang's snow-white neck, and he did not forget to threaten her. As long as you serve me well, I'll spare that good-for-nothing Zhang Hong's life. Sen Shuang could not help but bite her lips so that she could have more strength. She looked at the motionless figure on the bed. Zhang Hong did not move. He did not plan to save her. Even if he did not like her, she was still Mrs. Zhang. Zhang Hong actually wanted to sacrifice her for his own safety. Sen Shuang felt wrong. The kind of injustice was the worst kind. When Zhang Tinghao assaulted her, she had been so devoted to taking care of him, she did not expect that he had no conscience. If she had known earlier that he would have used a pillow to suffocate Zhang Hong by now. Sen Shuang said angrily, Zhang Hong, you bastard, will you let him take a fool of you? Zhang Tinghao sneered sarcastically. Even if I cheated on him on the spot and stabbed him twice, he still would not have woken up. The moment her skirt was turned, Sen Shuang cursed the 2 brothers in her heart. Zhang Tinghao met Sen Shuang's gaze and his heart thumped unsteadily. Although he was afraid that Sen Shuang would settle the score later, he thought that as long as he subdued her this time, she would only be obedient in front of him in the future. How can she still be willing to hit him if he was her first? Thinking of this, Zhang Tinghao did not hesitate any longer. He only wanted to turn Sen Shuang into his woman. Zhang Tinghao had an arrogant look on his face. What's so good about that trash? If you stay with me, I'll settle him for you and let you be the eldest young mistress of the Zhang family. As soon as he said that, a light snort came from above him. The man's deep voice was neither cold nor warm. What do you want to do with me? They heard Zhang Hong's voice. Sen Shuang seemed to have gained strength in an instant. The moment she raised her head to look at Zhang Hong on the bed, her eyes reddened. You're awake. Her voice was full of pain. If she had not forcefully held back her tears, they would have already gushed out. Zhang Tinghao knelt on the ground as if he had been injected with lead. He was unable to move. After a long while, he finally called out, Zhang Hong! Sen Shuang felt that she might have used the last of her strength to pry off Zhang Tinghao's grip. The person on the bed unhurriedly lifted the blanket. Under the incredulous gazes of the other two, he got off the bed and grabbed a fruit knife from the table. You want to make me a cuckold? How should I thank you for that? Zhang Tinghao's voice was not loud, but it reverberated throughout the entire room. Zhang Tinghao was so frightened that he squatted down onto the ground. He looked down at the dark figure that was slowly approaching him, and he looked down at himself. He looked pitiful and pathetic on the ground. Zhang Hong leaned against the bed. Zhang Tinghao felt the threatening aura he eluded. Just one look was enough to make him tremble in fear.